talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the war of economic attrition, the Great Reset, what is happening right now, Trump's economic reset, the silent global war, all of these things happening at the same time. We're also going to talk about kind of what's happening right now in the world of accountability, indictments, and elections. We're going to touch a little bit on that. The best show on Tuesday night on the Rumble platform. So I hope you guys are tuned in. If you are new here, please hit that thumbs up and that follow button. Follow Badlands Media. Don't forget to also go in there, hit that notification button so you get notified every time that we go live. And I see the chat is very active. 3,200 beautiful people out there tonight watching just now. We're probably going to have a good 3,000 to 4,000 jump in over the course of the next little while. And you know, I always say this, Alpha, like when I look at where we're at, when I pull that 40,000 foot view, I've been saying this since Trump came back into the White House, is that for the longest time I said we had 1 foot out the old door and 1 foot in the new door. And I revised that tonight. I said, instead of 1 foot out the old door, the door is closing on that old world. And we are now almost 2 feet in that new door with the door closing behind us, because what we were about to see probably over the course of the next 6 to 12 months is a complete transformation of the global economy and the geopolitical alignments that have dominated for over the last 100 years. This is coming up to the end game of the systematic destruction of the old guard. And everything right now is positioning itself for exactly that.
Real quick, before you drop gems, the audience is saying that your mic is coming in low. So you want to verify in your mic settings that you're connected to the right
testing.
one.
1, 2, 3. My mic settings are good. Let me actually go in here and oh well, you know, in StreamYard, dude. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
So while we wait for Josh to take care of that, folks, again, thank you, because we rely on you guys to pick up those technical things. Because for me, he sounds fine. But again, we're in the studio together. The other thing, I think we're going to have a surprise guest for a few minutes tonight or two. So looking forward to that. And 3, one of the things I didn't get to cover in my show, and you know, sometimes it just works out that way. But I told Josh we're going to cover it tonight. Is if you guys remember, and it looks like he's back, but if you guys remember a couple shows ago, we had came across a General Flynn post, and there was some correlations that made there, and we said, listen, they're showing you that the comms are here. There was some back and forth that went on. I have something that is pretty awesome that unequivocally looks like it connects to that. Josh, are we having some special guests tonight?
We are. Can you hear me better now?
I hear you fine. So it's going to be.
So everybody out there, is Josh's volume still low, or is it better? So you ever go when it has you muted when you first come into StreamYard, and you just unmute and you go in? Well, when I come in, it doesn't have anything selected in the audio section. So I have to go out, reselect it, put it on my row, and then come back in. So if people can hear me better now, okay, fine here. 5 5s all the way around. If we can get that. 5 5s on Rumble, better, Josh. Appreciate it. And, you know, I don't like spending a lot of money on all this gear and then having nothing freaking work. So
YouTube is saying that you're 5x5 and you're good. People are saying you're 10x better. So we're
okay,
solid.
Good. Glad.
We're solid there. So let me ask you this. Should we get into that post that I found to make the connection, or should we do that after our guests? Because I think our guests are going to be showing up any minute now, and I don't.
They'll be here in a few minutes, but they'll be here in a few minutes. Let's actually go into a few different posts. I got a few. Actually, we can bring it up, and we can bring yours up after if you want to. But there was a few different things that I saw that I thought pretty interesting. One of our buddies, OG Anon out there, he put this on X, and I saw this. I'm like, oh. So this was quite interesting. Carly posted this, and if people don't know who this is, that is Hunter Turpak. And why Hunter Turpak is important is because he was known, if you're looking back, remember me, the QAnon baby, the QAnon kid who showed up with President Trump. That was 10 years ago. Well, Scavino went ahead and reposted Carly, which is huge because that's an Anon. He says, I remember this moment back in 2016 at the Mohegan Sun Arena in Pennsylvania. Then he says, our team will be in touch, Hunter. You are coming to the White House this fall. Now, why is that important? Well, Our buddy OG Anon 661 said, holy shitballs, could it be? Might it? It's almost time. And if you remember the post 2347 about this specifically, QAnon baby, important moment in time. The picture will be the signifier. The signifier will force the Q. The Q will be answered. It's pretty crazy because Vito comes back and says he's coming to the White House this fall, that's the signifier, is it not?
Hell yeah, it is.
and I believe the QAnon baby, by the way, was a baby with the QAnon shirt. But this was one of the kids that came up to Trump. He's very famous for being in all these videos. And so it's not necessarily the QAnon baby, because that post is actually gone from what we've seen. Now, remember the QAnon baby was a little baby.
There's another,
cool. I like
there's
it.
another QAnon baby, but that's a conversation we'll have offline that you're going to be like, what? It'll be revealed one day.
Then how about this one?
Go ahead.
Okay, so Elon, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what Elon is talking about, or I believe Elon is talking about later in the show when we get into the economic warfare that's going on. But Elon says there is a potential future that is super amazing. We all fight hard to achieve it. Well, he spelled F, if, wrong. It's supposed to be if, not is. So that is kill bracket F, if we all remember correctly, right? Well, where do we remember kill bracket F?
14.
From post 14. Now, do you remember the picture right there? Washington crossing the Delaware. So Hodler says right here, Elon misspelled if and spelled it is. The first Q drop with the F is 14. Okay, interesting. But guess what? Do we remember this one? This is an Elon post, the bedside table. And what do you have in the background?
Something I've seen before.
Washington crossing the Delaware.
Something I've seen before, especially in a little wooden box like that.
That's right. So you got Washington crossing the Delaware, one pistol revolver this way. Then you got another big gun this way next to the Chinese finger cuffs. So China's lockhold on the world is being challenged by a revolutionary spirit, and Coke is driving the way, right? But I just found it really interesting.
Will those be gold Coke cans?
They are gold. Oh, gold. Oh. But we're going to talk about the economic world. And I just did this on my show, and I did like a 1.5 speed whole briefing of a blog I've been writing. So I've been writing this like master 2-part blog about what's happening in the world. And I read about a tenth of it during my show in 30 minutes at 1.5 speed. It's more of a book, but I'm going to go over a summarization of this tonight, and I'm going to explain all of the details. And yes, Alpha, I'm going to use the famous words choke points that everybody else has been utilizing and stealing from us. And we're going to talk about that. So everybody, what I want you to understand is that tonight's show, we are going to discuss the prevailing war. And when I say that, it's because it's been a silent war for a very long time. I call the Iran war the war of economic attrition. You might think that means towards Iran, but it's not. It's actually towards China and Europe and various other countries in the world that are still existent in this old guard system, the London central banking system, which right now is being massively challenged by Donald Trump. And we're going to discuss how he is challenging that system, what he is doing to realign a new economic system and model, various different news points that are coming out over the course of the last few days that signify that this is about to ramp up very, very fast, and that a transition is actually going to occur at some point within the next 6 to 12 months. How Donald Trump does not want the Iran war to end. That is the big joke. Is that Donald Trump knew the MOUs never would hold up. He knew that Iran would lie. He has back channels in the IRGC. He has back channels directly within the political establishment. He knows what he's doing, and that the reason that it's continuing and Trump is coming out and saying the United States owns the Strait of Hormuz, this is intentional. This is intentional because of what it's doing in the context of economic or unrestricted warfare towards the adversaries that are trying to create a one world government, new world order, centralized government, global structure. And so we're going to talk all about that tonight. So I want you guys all to be like, holy shit, we got to pay attention. But first, But first, we got to
on.
bring up some good friends of ours. You know, we wouldn't be much here at Badlands if it wasn't for the sponsors of these shows. And at Badlands, we have the high level of integrity and quality that we only work with really the best people out there, the best small businesses that we find that have quality products, and not only quality products, but amazing products that can completely transform your life and your health. And if you ever wondered how Josh goes on these epic freaking rants, 20, 30, 50 minutes, it's because of one of the products that this company has right there. It's the Clarity. This stuff is freaking phenomenal. It is like taking caffeine pills, but without the caffeine edginess and everything like that. Your brain is just clear and clear. That's why they call it Clarity. But let's bring up Kurt and Cristin. What's up, guys? How we doing?
Hey.
We're doing great. Excited for tonight's show.
Oh, it's going to be a doozy.
Looking forward to
Man,
it.
you two together, the perfect guys.
Combination.
I tell you what.
Brains and bronze. He's got the brains. I got the bronze.
I was thinking more Ren and Stimpy, but I mean, I'll go with brain. I'll go with brains and brawn too. It's good to see. It's good to see both of you guys. You know, I've been seeing my audience talk in the chat. I know Josh sees it too. The stories that are starting to get shared from people, and they're very, very powerful. So again, where do you guys want to take this, Josh?
Well, okay, Josh.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you all you want to know about Pet Club 247, but I'd rather hear it from Kurt and Cristin. Hey guys, how have we been? What's been up?
It's been really amazing. You know, we just got a text today. Last time we talked, we were talking about mitochondrial biogenesis and just healthy cellular turnover and eating the right nutritional foods for our pets and for ourselves and how that really helps your body. And I just wanted to share some of the texts that we've been getting from your community, that people are reaching out to us, letting us know, hey, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing it. Even though it was really short, little bit of time, like it's truly helped us. So I had someone that said, I had no idea how she ordered the longevity pack, just so you know. And she said, I had no idea how well it helps to suppress my appetite. I've noticed since starting the longevity pack, I haven't been snacking as much. And now I really understand why. I've lost all bloat. I feel much lighter. I've lost several pounds and I've been craving only healthy foods. My cravings for snacks and chips have disappeared. I can't believe this is all related to the mushrooms. So that's just one. We have another lady that her brother was suffering with some pretty bad sleep apnea. And she said, I'm so grateful he completely cleared it up with the longevity pack, and especially the Enforce Plus and the Clarity, they think has really made a difference with his sleep apnea. And we could go on and on with all different types of things. And I'd love to say that these mushrooms are cures for things for our pets and ourselves, but they're not. They're just functional foods that feed our bodies on a cellular level, and it restores and regulates and rebalances and repairs a lot of the systems and the things that are damaged in our body. And I'm just so grateful that we get to be a part of it. And we're grateful to you guys for just using your platform for good and letting people know, like you said, there are small businesses out there that are making a big impact. So we are so grateful for you guys for opening it up to people like us to be able to share what can be possible for people.
Yeah. And, you know, Alpha has his own stories that he's told with using these products. And a lot of the Badlanders are now using these products. And I went to the last Great American Restoration Tour, and a lot of people was like, oh my God, I'm using the Pet Club mushrooms and these are fantastic. And the Clarity does work, people. I'm telling you. You know what I do is about a half an hour before a show, I pop 2 Clarity, which are just lion's mane, right? It's lion's mane and a few others. And then I have a small cup of espresso. And oh my goodness, is it just phenomenal. It's like the mental clarity is like, it's like microdosing psychedelic mushrooms, but they're phenomenal.
Not psychedelic mushrooms.
No, I know they're not, but that's what I'm saying is like the mental clarity you get from it is very, very similar.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, the mushrooms that we provide, the 5 different mushrooms, are loaded with spermidine. And you guys,
I wouldn't use that word.
Well, if you know anything about spermidine, it's a natural polyamine.
Alpha knows all about it.
Stimulates autophagy, which, you know, autophagy is something we can generally only get when we're fasting or exercising a lot, right? So you typically got to fast 36 hours before you get into autophagy. And so recent data supports that, you know, increased uptake of this polyamine increases your overall health and
Yeah.
creates longevity. This is why the ancient Egyptians called it the mushroom of longevity. The
Mhm.
ancient Chinese called it the mushroom of youth. And that's the Inforce. That's a green bottle. That's, every single person should be on that because of
Yeah.
what it does. No side effects. You can't take too much. You can't overdose. Can't get addicted. None of that.
It's like eating a
And
mushroom on a salad.
mhm.
And
You know,
just
I was speaking to a guy, and I've adopted saying this phrase with a lot of the stuff in the products like your guys is God's pharmacy. Like,
yeah,
that's where it's coming from, God's pharmacy, and I love it. And yes, I might have a lot of kids, Josh, but you know what? That just means I have a wide variety of when I'm an old man where I get to get myself in all my pet club and be like, whose house am I staying at now? But
well, we always
no,
joke around.
God's pharmacy is so important because again, this stuff is not stuff that's gonna hurt your liver, hurt your kidneys. Like this is good natural stuff.
Well, we call it a farm, FARM, pharmacy.
Yeah.
We're going back to nature and everything. And, Kurt's talking about autophagy. And I don't think the guy that discovered this actually won a Nobel Peace Prize because it's that revolutionary. What autophagy is it's cellular recycling. So we all know we have bad damaged cells in our bodies. Our pets have bad damaged cells. But our body does a process called autophagy where the good cells eat the bad cells, break the components apart, and then use them to start replicating healthy cells in their place. So it's a complete cellular turnover. So when you're taking these damaged, compromised cells and making them, breaking them apart and making new healthy ones, what happens in your body? That's why everyone says, I feel so much younger. I feel 10, 15, 20 years younger. I see someone in the chat asking about hormonal imbalances and, menopause and perimenopause. I highly recommend the longevity pack if you can, because that combination of the mushrooms work together in a synergy. It really helps to balance your adrenals. When you're going through menopause and perimenopause, your cortisol's through the roof, as our husbands will attest to. So that's what causes all those mood swings and, turning into your wife suddenly turning into the Hulk, because you dropped something, or you chewed too loud. But I recommend the longevity pack because it helps with the moods. It helps support mood regulation and balance. It helps support hormonal balance. It helps restore a lot of the systems that have broken down. It truly is functional food support for your body. So that's what I recommend for you. At the very least, if you can just take the Coriolis versicolor mushroom, this helps to support your immune system. Your immune system is responsible for repairing, rebuilding, regulating, rebalancing everything inside of your body. So I know sometimes people are on a budget and they say, hey, if I have to start somewhere, what should I start with? And whether it's for your pet or for yourself, I recommend the Coriolis versicolor. It's a core mushroom. Every pet, every person, every day should be eating this as part of their regular diet. And just watch how it pounds over time.
To that point, Cristin, though, and I get it. I get finances, but you can't think in the moment. You got to think long term too. This stuff is you're going to reduce your grocery bill. You're going to reduce the bad stuff. And ultimately, by taking care of your health, you're going to reduce these synthetic drugs that require doctor's appointments and co-pays and other drugs. You are going to save money. And speaking of, the green bottle, right? And what it does, there's an orange bottle called Shield. And I want to share a story because I know my family's watching right now, right? So this is how they learn some things. I'm the Marine Corps side of me, OCD, right? I have my bottles lined up on, my little supplement shelf that we have, right? Here's my yellow bottles, here's my blue ones, here's my reds, here's my orange, right? And then I go and I flip it so I know which ones that I'm taking. Well, I knew I was coming low on the Shield, but I looked behind it and saw the bottle behind it. So I'm like, I'm good because as soon as that one runs out, I have the next one. So yesterday, or I think it was the day before, I go take the last one to go to open the next one. Somebody put a Restore bottle behind the Shield bottle. So I was just like, I don't have any more Shields. So of course you go into panic mode, right? Because you got to order them. You got to wait for a couple of days to get there. So folks, I'm telling you, this stuff is that good. But can you talk a little bit about the Shield? And I'll bring the empty bottle up on the screen so people can see which one I'm talking about here.
Yeah, that one's the shiitake mushroom. And this is a really important mushroom because it has a lot of antioxidants and it's really good for cardiovascular support. But something very powerful about that particular mushroom is it's a great source of natural vitamin D. And almost all adults are deficient in vitamin D for a lot of different reasons, which we don't have the time to go into. And so it's a great way to get actual natural vitamin D from the sun. It's one of the few non-animal sources that you can get it from. And so it can help to rebalance those levels. Also, there are so many studies coming out. We're moving into like September, we're moving into cold and flu season. There are so many studies coming out on how the shiitake mushroom helps to promote a healthy antiviral response in the body. So it makes it harder for viruses to actually get into the cells and affect you. So, that's why it's called shield, actually, because it helps to shield your cells and shield your body. So look up this research. It's fascinating. And I'm just convinced after everything that we've seen, and I know it sounds too good to be true and everybody says their stuff is the best, but after everything that I've seen, I'm just convinced these mushrooms, they nourish our bodies so intelligently in ways that no other food can. And they're our greatest ally. They cover 80% of the earth, their mycelial network. So it's meant for all life everywhere. It's meant to be a resource for all of us, animals, plants, people alike. So I'm just grateful we're part of this little mushroom revolution.
Well, I mean, you guys know, we all know personal people, friends of ours, your friends, that they're on this planet because they were on these mushrooms. It's amazing. And again,
they're still with us.
They're still with it. It's amazing what they're capable of accomplishing and just getting the immune system working effectively again.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I have a lady that messaged me a few days ago, and she started providing for her cat. Absolute happy.
Yeah.
With what she's seen in her cat. Because again, like you guys said at the entrance, and I'll give it to you, Josh, it's for us and it's for our pets. Go ahead, Josh. I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I was going to say I'm putting the link for everybody who is talking about this. I'm putting the link right now in the chats so they can have that. It's also scrolling right below. So badlandsmedia.petclub247.com. And we'll work with Badlands to get a shorter link for that as well that directs directly from Badlands Media's primary domain. But that link is in the chat for people who out there who are wondering about that. And Kurt and Cristin, man, I love you guys. I can't wait to, you guys are going to be coming back on my show here soon and Alpha's show here as well. But I appreciate you guys coming on tonight, and you guys are amazing, and keep up God's good work, and appreciate all of you guys over there at Pet Club and everything that you guys are doing, and Steve and Simon and all of them. And so my prayers out to all of them, and tell them we all said hi, and looking forward to talking to you guys next time.
Before I let you guys go, let me just take a quick look at the Rumble rants. We usually read them at the end of the show, but just want to make sure no question came in for you guys here at the end. And I don't see any. And I don't see any in the super chat. So this is what I'll say for the audience that's watching live right now with us. If you do have a question, drop it down in the comments, and myself or Josh or both of us, in the next couple of days, we'll look through for those questions and shoot them off to Kurt and Cristin. That way we can do a follow-up and answer these questions for you, because I know you guys got a lot. We got to let these folks fly as well. Anything you guys want to say to the audience before we let you go?
I just wanted to say thank you guys, and thank you for this community, all who you are, everything you stand for. Like, we really are making a difference. And I know a lot of times we feel so insignificant and small, but even just being a part of a community like this really helps us to gather and to fight back and push back against the system, because we're done with it. I think we all are. So thank you guys.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you.
We'll talk to you guys. Take care. All right.
I'll say this. Folks, me and Josh always talk about this war that we're in. You got to be around for it. like, let's just start there. Like, let's just start with the fundamental, primitive mindset. I want to live. That should be enough motivation for you to take it. Obviously, you heard us talk about all the other additional benefits. Badlandsmedia.petclub247.com. Again, we'll drop that link throughout the night in the chat. All right, Josh, let's get into this.
Well, what's going on, man? Today, Fauci's former assistant at NIAID, Morans, pleaded guilty to what? Wait, what did he? Wait, hold on, Alpha. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy to defraud the United States government. Wait a minute. Is that a conspiracy? Now, you know what's interesting that I said about this? And I'm going to bring up the documents. This is from Technofog over on X.
And when you do, because I want to read Cash's post to this, because Cash told us something without telling us something.
Now, this is where it gets interesting, because when you go into the original unsealed indictment, the indictment was originally for Morans, but it talked about co-conspirator 1, co-conspirator 2, as well as senior NIAID official 1. Now, we actually kind of know who this is because we remember the email trail of who Morans was talking to. So co-conspirator 1 and co-conspirator 2 would be most likely Ralph Barrick and Peter Daszak of EcoHealth Alliance, and senior NIAID official 1 is going to be Anthony Fauci, his boss. So hold on. Here's the interesting part. If Fauci didn't have a pardon, he would have been in on this. He would have been indicted over this and this alone. This is massive. Go ahead.
It is. Now, I want to give it to you, but what you just read is exactly goes into Cash's post. So let me just interject his post for you here, and then I'll give it right back. So let me bring this up on the screen. Let me zoom in on this for people that want to see this a little bit better. So here's Cash's post from today. After an FBI investigation with our DOJ partners, Dr. Fauci's associate, David Morans, just pled guilty to conspiracy in a scheme to avoid FOIA requests and Federal Records Act connected to COVID-19 research grants. Now, again, continuing, then I'll just give you guys what I'm talking about here. The FBI uncovered that Morans, co-conspirator 1, co-conspirator 2, and others conspired during COVID-19 pandemic to defraud the United States after the National Institute of Health terminated co-conspirator 1's grant. Now, again, you heard the names that Josh put out, which I agree with. Let me tell you what Cash is telling you without telling you. He could have went out like everybody else reporting this and said David Morans. He comes out, and how does he identify David Morans in the beginning of this? Dr. Fauci's associate, David Morans. He wants you to understand where David Morans' area of operation is and who he's connected to with Fauci. I think that's important. And again, I understand that the pardon's in play, but we're not done with it either. Like,
nope, not at all.
So just think, you have the director of the FBI that's telling you Dr. Fauci's associate, David Morans. It's a title that he put on Morans here. Now, to continue, obviously, we know that there's a conspiracy. He comes out, he puts Moran, co-conspirator 1, co-conspirator 2, and others. Why? Because that identifies when you got 2 or more, 3 in this case, several people, that's identifying the conspiracy element of this. Why is that important? Because something me and Josh have been talking about since early last year is RICO, baby. Ongoing conspiracy doctrine in a criminal enterprise. He just defined all that in one post, and he gave you names.
That's right. And he hinted towards co-conspirator 1 and who that is. And he's talking about National Institutes of Health terminated co-conspirator 1's grant. Now, whose grant was terminated in 2014? That was Peter Daszak at EcoHealth Alliance. And what ended up happening to that is they moved from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, when gain of function research was ended, and they went to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, partially funded by China, and then a $3.1 million grant from NIAID, and that's where David Morans and Anthony Fauci come into this. Now, this is important and significant because this was the first part of COVID actually being developed. So now when you start to look at just the COVID scheme, from the virus being, released, or what they call accidentally released. Remember how I told you that verbiage is going to start changing over the course of the next few months? It's going to move from accidentally released to intentionally released. And this is one of the setups that they're doing. And that everything that we're seeing being released right now is all kind of various different puzzle pieces that seem completely unrelated. But then when you start to put it all together, is structurally a multi-decade conspiracy against the United States government and the people of the United States of America to undermine the United States Constitution. So when you go into this, what you start finding is that this is directly linked and connected the Chinese research funding, or PLA, People's Liberation Army's research funding. We know this because in 2014, I think it was General Flynn, who heads basically China's biological warfare department. He did a speech at where? The Wuhan Institute of Technology, about 150 yards away from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which, by the way, is a level 4 biolab owned by the Chinese military. And he talked about how the new generation of warfare is going to include DNA-specific targeted viruses that are created in labs by mutating various different types of zoological viruses. And he even pointed to coronaviruses as being one of them. And this is after EcoHealth Alliance had moved over to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is trying to show you that the Chinese military was integrated and directly associated with a lot of this research and funding during this point in time. Why is that important? Because Donald Trump came out and addressed the nation a few weeks ago, and he said, hey, China influenced and interfered with the 2020 presidential election. He didn't say that they flipped votes, didn't say that they stole the election. He said they interfered and influenced legally as terms defined by the Department of Justice. Now, he said that, hey, look, they did this, and that gives you the legal predicate for a national emergency for election integrity and infrastructure, which we've talked about ad infinitum multiple different times. But one of the things that comes out within all of this is that at the same time, Fauci is under interrogation. DOJ criminal referrals have been sent. He's under a Joe Biden pardon. But with Fauci, what did he do? He went to the intelligence community. He directly got involved in the cover-up of the lab origins, trying to show that COVID-19 did not come from a U.S.-funded gain-of-function research. He got directly involved with the science and research, putting out bunk research stating that masks and social distancing and all this stuff actually worked, when in actuality, he had the legitimate evidence, and in his diary he even said that it doesn't work. And he's trying to tell you the trust of science. That's a psychological warfare operation. At the same time, Fauci is taking money and kickbacks from all this types of research. He covered up various different types of vaccine data research and helped to suppress the VAERS system data. This is showing intent towards the criminality that was done, where hundreds of millions of people across the world died because of this. And that's where this other part comes in, because Fauci isn't off the hook, because he got state criminal indictments that can come, civil litigation that can come, and international indictments because of this evidence trail that's being built. But the grand scheme of things, when you start to look at it, is this is one of the things that I was showing the other night on Q After Hours is, DNI Tulsi Gabbard in her last day on June 30th, she put out new declassified information pertaining to the 72 different biolabs in Ukraine. And that was really important because it really didn't seem to have any connection to the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the gain of function research being done there with COVID origins, but it actually does. We're not going to get into that part of how it's actually directly connected under DTRA, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, and the Defense Intelligence Agency, and Black and Veatch. But the connectivity part there is actually through a Black and Veatch subcontractor that they hired in Europe. Now, why is that interesting? Because that person was Dr. Nathan Wolfe. Dr. Nathan Wolfe owned a company by the name of Metabiota, who was a pandemic research company that was working directly with the biolabs in Ukraine. Dr. Nathan Wolfe is a close associate to a guy by the name of Jeffrey Epstein. Ever heard of him? Now, Metabiota, by the way, had a round of funding, and one of the companies that invested directly in Metabiota was Rosemont Seneca. Owned by who? Devin Archer and Hunter Biden. Now, why is that also interesting? Because that ties directly back to those people being two board members on the Burisma board in eastern Ukraine in geolocation around those same biolabs. In other words, you're seeing a grand criminal conspiracy being organized and set up around all of this, that this wasn't an accidental lab leak. This was intentional. This was planned. And they were working privately and publicly to get this research done and completed, even funding it through the private sector with people in close proximity to the former vice president, former president of the United States of America, which is huge when you start to look at this in the grand scope of things. Now, put Metabiota to the side. When you start to look at the other parts of this, what DNI Tulsi Gabbard put out, she put out that the lab origins were basically directly from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, although she said it with a stressing in her line. Accidental. And she's doing that intentionally because that's going to change over time. But you got to go through the discovery process. Now, why does that all matter? Because now you directly connect that to the level of research that's come out after Donald Trump did his national address. Donald Trump gives his national address, points the finger to China, releases all this data and information. China stole over 122 million data points on the public or on the private data rolls. He sent the public information. This is the private data rolls that are behind secure firewalls on 18 different states. That's huge. That is massive infiltration into our election system. So that gives him the legal predicate, obviously, for a national emergency. But there was more, because after that, we had a flow of 3 different things that happened that the FBI did during the first Trump administration. When James Comey was fired, Andy McCabe became acting FBI director, and he started 2 different investigations. One was known as March Toll, the other one was known as Oxford Comma. Oxford Comma investigated Donald Trump as a Russian asset. This is the sitting president of the United States of America at the time being investigated by acting FBI director Andy McCabe and the FBI as a Russian asset. The other one was March Toll, which was then targeted towards the Attorney General, the boss of Andy McCabe, Jeff Sessions. So that's huge right there. But then right after that, the FBI opened up a counterintelligence operation, almost like in just knowing that things were going to come down towards the 2020 election. But the counterintelligence operation, known as Round River, or a moat that protects the castle in the middle, basically labeled all of these people in right-wing conservatism and right-wing politics as Russian disinformation agents, and then protected people on the left, including companies. And this is the smoking gun that nobody is putting together out there, that nobody's even talking about. If you go through the list of the people that were protected, yeah, you got Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, all these fucked people. I'm not worried about that. It's the companies that are under there, and the NGOs, George Soros, Open Society Foundations, but more importantly, Rosemont, Seneca, Bodai. Why? Because they had deals and contracts with CFTC Energy in China where they were paying the Biden family millions upon millions of dollars. Now, why are they being named, Rosemont, Seneca being named in a CI in basically operation by the FBI, counterintelligence operation by the FBI, as basically having blanket immunity? Why? Because China was funding the DNC and the various different politicians. China was funding the COVID-19 research through the PLA. China, this is why Donald Trump pointed towards China, because when you start to pull it all together, now you have to follow the money. When you begin to follow the money, like you go back to the 2018 midterms, and I always talked about this because this is one of the most important parts of all of this. 2018 midterms, I absolutely believe were stolen. But the 2018 midterms, George Soros' Open Society Foundation utilized BLM and various other public organizations that they funded, Right to Vote, all of these places, as well as Singham Roy, Neville Roy Singham and his NGOs. They funded various different private and public organizations to go out there and register people to vote, but also to go out there and do this rampant voter fraud that we've seen, the mail-in voter fraud. But they focus primarily on attorney generals and secretary of states. Why was that so important? We didn't know in 2018. We wouldn't know this until 2020 when
we didn't. But I believe there's somebody that did. So hold that thought, because I don't want to get too far away from some very important things you said. And I do want to ask you.
I can't.
You got to hold it. Don't lose that thought. Take some more clarity. There's a video, and a lot of you might not be aware of Scott Bessent's a beast. Y'all know I love this guy. But a lot of you might not be aware of who he worked for. So think about everything Josh just said, and now listen and watch this video clip, because most of you have probably not even seen this or probably don't even know about it.
Ultimately, this debt hole that we're in. I would love to, let's talk a little bit more about behind that desk. I have been fascinated with you, your life, your career. One of the things that I think some people know about your career, if they don't, they're about to learn, is that you worked for a long time, 2 different stints, 15 years for George Soros. And there's a lot of people watching, I'm sure you know, Mr. Secretary, like, what? The secretary worked for George Soros? There's a lot of people, perhaps me included, that have a lot of doubts about this man. So I would ask you, what do we misunderstand about George Soros?
Well, a couple of things. You know, my job for him was working at the investment side, never on the foundation side, and those were kept very separate. And for my first stint, Mr. Soros was focused on bringing down the Iron Curtain and was very helpful in the collapse of the Soviet Union. After I had left the first time, sometime in the early 2000s, I don't know what happened. He got much more focused on domestic policy. He and I rarely talked about politics. We haven't spoken since just after President Trump was elected in 2016.
Haven't spoken in 10 years.
And I would tell you that we had a very robust discussion. And election night 2016 was one of the 3 best periods I've ever had for money making, because I thought President Trump was going to win. And I don't know if you remember, Will, but election night 2016, the market crashed. Market crashed, and that was one of the greatest buying opportunities of all time, because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this is the most pro-business president probably since Calvin Coolidge. And I later found out that George Soros was the one selling the market. He was crashing the market, lost several $billions that night, and myself and several others made a lot of money for our investors the next few weeks.
We have a couple.
Bro, go ahead, because I can add to it. Go ahead.
Well, Scott Bessent just kind of set up one of the reasons why Donald Trump immediately became a target to George Soros is on election night. Donald Trump lost George Soros billions upon billions of dollars because George Soros knew that Donald Trump was going to interfere with his plans and processes and decide to create an economic storm on election night 2016. But instead, what happened was quite the opposite, and he lost, and he doesn't hold grudges well. And so the next part, 2018 midterms, you have Neville Roy Singham as well as George Soros utilizing their institutional powers to go out there and fund attorney generals and Secretary of State's elections. We didn't know why that was so important until 2020, when COVID hit. And people like Fauci directed the CIA and the White House to make certain changes within the public structure, social distancing, masks, all of these things. This created the psychological warfare to basically either suspend elections or change the way we do elections, which emergency protocols were initiated between the Secretary of States of each state, where they said, hey, we need rampant mail-in balloting so people can't go to the voting box. They can instead mail in their ballots. You got to also remember what also happened at the beginning of 2020. Do you remember this? The U.S. Census. And remember, Trump was trying to delay the census. They sued to try to get illegal immigrants off of it, but they couldn't. This was so important because that census allows basically the states to justify sending out so many mail-in ballots and so forth. So what ends up happening is those Secretary of States change state rules on how elections are done, opening up basically the floodwaters for mail-in ballots. The attorney generals rubber stamped it. In many of those states, by the way, those Secretary of States were sued by the citizens who won in court because the courts deemed it unconstitutional, because the Secretary of State or the Attorney General do not have the right to change the laws. Only the state assemblies do. But that was the methodology, the reason why they did that in 2018. But that couldn't have been done without COVID being released. It couldn't have been done without China financing and funding all of this on the back end previous years. So when you look at why they went after Donald Trump with FISA-gate and Russia-gate, with impeachment 1, impeachment 2, and the Mueller investigation, there's a few different reasonings behind this. Number one is to cover up the crimes and corruptions of the Obama administration and what they were doing, setting the stage for Marxism and socialism to take over the United States over the next 8 years through a 16-year plan. Number two thing is they knew that Donald Trump was going to come in and interfere directly with their New World Order, one world government, their commie-fascist dictatorship that they were setting up. So they knew that he was going to interfere because he had the military behind him. And number three thing, the reason they went after Donald Trump so much during that time frame is they had to regain power and control. And every step that they made to regain power and control, more information started getting disclosed, more revealed their hand. And so this goes back to the idea that as things move from the darkness into the light, the public become more aware.
The part where you said right now, where more information started to become available, and I'm not talking about the public side. I'm talking about the information that became available to Trump. Scott Bessent, you just saw 15 years he was working with Soros early on. You don't think that provided him insights to how things operated? Who were the people in the network? Hell yeah. So now zoom out real quick, and because we talk, undercover operations, infiltration works both ways, folks, depending on how long you think this operation's been in play. Now all of a sudden, Scott Bessent Is someone tied to Trump? I know a lot of us don't like Peter Thiel, but all of a sudden he's under Trump. Did Trump position people, or the people that maybe recruited Trump, whoever that might be, did they position people in certain areas of this new world order so that when the time came to make the move, they pull these people in and Trump would have real-time firsthand information from people that were actually in the circles of these cronies?
So that's one plausible theory, and I actually agree with that with certain extents. People like Scott Bessent, yes, I do think that might have been that. Also, you have to go into the multi-headed hydra, or the War of the Roses approach, is that the old guard that formed after the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1948 becomes very, very specific here. Because what happened is you had a centralization of monetary and banking power among the various different Western nations, primarily European, right? And what ends up happening with that is this is the satanic cabal. This is the globalists that we know of today, the old British aristocracy, the royal families, the London bankers, the Rothschilds. And what happens with that is they become so powerful over this monetary control system that they developed from the post Bretton Woods, that all of these other factions on the planet, nation states and political factions, economic factions, large financial institutions, all these multinational conglomerates, all of the power figures, they begin to basically align themselves with the big daddy of the globalist power structure. Well, what did Donald Trump immediately do? It said right on the cue board, third one removed post-Trump victory. They're talking about the triangle. They were talking about the Rockefeller family, right? They were removed from that power triangle. Soon after, the House of Saud was removed from that power triangle. So all you had left was Soros. So when you start to go into this idea is that the global power structure is more what like Dr. John Coleman talked about in the Committee of 300. It is a board of directors that sits and basically regulates what happens and when it happens in the world. And then you have crony capitalism that takes over and ensures that money and power centralizes in their hands in one way, shape, or form. And that was the way the system was done for the longest time. And when Donald Trump came in, he started disrupting that system. And people saw Donald Trump gaining foothold over this system and taking this system head on. So what began to happen is people began to basically branch off and leave that centralized global component, which had ruled and dominated for 100 years. And they started to freelance and then eventually start to align with Donald Trump. And Butler, Pennsylvania is one of the defining moments, because this is where we start to see many of these people completely leave that globalist infrastructure and start to align with Donald Trump. And this means that Donald Trump and his kind of circle of influence is rising up as that global power control structure. The United States of America is rising up as that global power control structure that is taking over that old idea of what the New World Order is. And all of these other institutions and people and power brokers are now starting to align with Donald Trump. So people ask, like, why is Mark Zuckerberg online with Donald Trump? That's why. Why is Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, and why is Bill Gates going to the White House and getting meetings and all these things? This is why. Because these are intermediaries of power and control. These are people who control mass amounts of production, of massive amounts of revenue and technology and innovation. And they have large connections within this massive grid system that the globalists have developed. And so when they start to basically leave that system and they go to a new one, what they're bringing is they're bringing in all of their resources. They're bringing in all of their reach, all their monetary assets, all of that middle level management that they have underneath them. So Bill Gates, is he better off in Gitmo and dead with his whole network and infrastructure completely destroyed? Or does Donald Trump take and absorb that and utilize that to the best of his benefit and ability to help make the world a better place while keeping the containment of that evil son of a bitch right there and keeping him under complete watch and guidance? That's the way that you do things.
And I agree with you, because the deep state, in my opinion, the deep state's countermeasure was always, well, when you come for us, we're going to on the TNT and blow the entire infrastructure up when you catch us. That's what you're going to have to do. And then a president like Trump, you'll never do that, because you would send society spiraling into chaos. Trump didn't do that. He took control of it. Why? Because at the same time that this is going on, the deep state has these other world powers like the CCP that are in this race for us. So you're right. We have to maintain this infrastructure that we have. We're not in a position to just blow it up, hit zero, and start from scratch. You just don't do it that way. You take control of it. I want to show you a post right now that goes into some of the things you're talking about right now with Rosemont Seneca and Metabiota and Ukraine. But before we do that, you guys heard about Pet Club, but part of that is making sure your gut microbiome is in check, folks. And you can do that by checking out our brother over here at Good Brew. What if your morning coffee could do more than just wake you up? Good Brew is an organic symbiotic with prebiotics and probiotics that you can stir into hot coffee or any food or drink without changing the flavor. Just 1 scoop a day, or maybe 1.5, depending who you are. It's backed by 25 clinical studies to support digestion, immune function, and protein utilization. And it's designed to survive the harsh environment of our stomachs. Plus, it's made here in the great US of A with no preservatives, no flavorings, no additives. A healthy gut supports a healthy mind and body, helping with digestion, energy, mood, and athletic performance. That is the power of Good Brew. So go to goodbrew.com. That's brew, BRU.com/Badlands today and use promo code Badlands for 10% off. That's goodbrew.com/Badlands and use code Badlands to get your discount today.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay.
Listen, man, we got the best freaking people. These sponsors are giving us stuff that actually works and makes us healthy. So I'm fired up. You've heard the stories. So here's the post I wanted to show you. Remember, you were talking about Rosemont Seneca. I believe you mentioned Metabiota. I mean, we know how they all come to play. You mentioned Ukraine. So this story is from about 8 or 9 days ago. BRICS puts out, just in, Russia strikes WHO warehouse in Ukraine. Do you think, Josh, there might be some connections here?
Oh, I think there's absolutely some connect. The WHO is one of the people that were, or one of the organizations that was working directly with some of these biolabs. They come out and they tell you that, these Ukraine biolabs, there were more medical facilities that were helping poor and impoverished people in eastern Ukraine. But then Vladimir Putin goes to the United Nations between 2014, right after they annexed Crimea, after the Maidan massacre. Between 2014 and 2018, over 15,000 people in the eastern Donbass region were killed by the 1st Mechanized Brigade, the Azov battalions, and so forth, but not through gunfight. A lot of it was done through various different bacterial and viral releases that were controlled, disseminated throughout that region. And one of the theories out there is that they were developing genetically targeting bioweapons, and this is one of the places that they were targeting, was in this area. Now, the WHO was absolutely operating in that arena during that point in time, and so Russia, they had multiple different military skirmishes within the eastern Donbass after this happened. Putin even went to the United Nations Security Council and asked for, intervention by NATO within eastern Ukraine because of what was happening to the people of eastern Donbass. And people don't know, it's like eastern Ukraine is like a lot of ethnic Russian people live in eastern Ukraine. And so, this is one of the reasons why Putin went in and annexed it in a special military operation. And those people voted for a referendum to leave Ukraine and join Russia, but Zelensky doesn't care about all that. Not only that, is there's more to that war than meets the eye. This is another proxy war. NATO on one side, China on the other. China funding Russia primarily, NATO funding Ukraine. And NATO, when we say that, don't think about U.S. involvement. Think European nations utilizing U.S. military forces and weaponry for their benefit in a proxy excursion that is trying to uproot Eastern Europe and gain control over much of the western front of Russia, which will never happen. And they know that unless there's a breakout of nuclear war and the United States is somehow dragged in through Article 5. But also on the China front of that same war and battle that we're talking about, is China is the main financier of Russia buying Russian oil. It's one of the only places that China is actually getting legitimate oil since the Strait of Hormuz is shut down. It's one of the primary sources of Russian revenue because of the U.S. sanctions that are still on Russia, which means that China is financing the Russian war against Ukraine. And I believe that one of the reasons Putin hasn't ended this is because China wants this war to prolongate. And there is a news article that just came out the other day. I think it was Reuters and a few others put it out there. that NATO, that the Ukraine proxy war is a breeding ground for weapons testing of new NATO weapons. So UK, Germany, and France and Italy are utilizing all types of new weaponry and military tactics within the ground game on Ukraine. Now that's interesting because what's China doing? China's just sitting back, observing, collecting SIGINT, collecting intelligence, collecting telemetry data, satellite data. They're watching battlefield movements. They're learning everything that they need to know about NATO and how NATO operates in a ground war, in a kinetic warfare, in air warfare, in economic warfare. And they're utilizing Russia as the proxy to do this. Now that's very similar to what's happening now in the Middle East with Iran, because we know that there are some other factions and parts behind that, but it's Donald Trump who's in control of that global faction. So one of the things that I see kind of like when I look at the global structure is that China is one of the main reasons. Remember, Donald Trump said this about 3 months ago. He says, hey, if China wanted the war in Ukraine to be over, all they have to do is turn off the money supply to Russia and it would be over tomorrow. He was telling us all along. So one of the other reasons I think, and there's like 6 multi-points of levels of why Donald Trump is in Iran, but one of those we know is a proxy war against China, and it hurts China. So you have those 2 proxy wars going on because they're basically proxy warfare of unrestricted warfare tactics, the wars of economic attrition that are occurring in those 2 zones, but they're strategic for the silent war, the big economic and basically power struggle that is going on for resource allocation, resource reallocation, accessibility, and control on the larger front between the United States and China. That's what we call the kind of the silent war. And we can get into that topic right now because I'm locked and loaded and ready to go.
Let's reserve on that one.
Why? It's the best part.
No, it is a good one, but I want to spend time on it because, again, I agree with you with what's going on. There's a lot that's going on with Iran, but to the concept, well, the Strait of Hormuz is open, the Strait of Hormuz is closed, it's open, it's closed. What makes you guys think Trump wants it open? And
that's what I was telling you earlier.
100%.
Yeah.
And this is why people have to pay attention to the other moves that Trump's doing. I hope you guys went and read part 1 of, the power war, because it's exactly what we're talking about here tonight. Because what you see Trump doing with Alaska, folks, is he's creating LNG. He's creating this atmosphere so that you can now trade with Asia, and Asia's not going to be relying on the Strait of Hormuz and what's coming out of the Middle East. Again, it's strategic. It's going to handcuff the power that China has. I absolutely love that. He changed it to the Strait of America, or America's Strait now, I think is what he changed the name to. But it goes into that. I want to make sure that I get into, before we run out of time, I want to show you this post. And I want to make sure you understand this conversation. So I think we can cover it in about 8 to 10 minutes. So if you want to go into the China one, we can.
No, go into your post because I think I know where you're going with this.
Okay, smooth. All right. Do you remember? I think it was like 2 shows ago, maybe it was even 1 show.
The white and the black. Washington on the white horse, Trump on the black horse.
Yes, right. But do you also remember that there was a General Flynn post? And yes. I don't remember exactly what post it was. It was one that you were talking about, and that's why I wanted to bring this to your attention, see if you remembered. But in that post, it brought up the 2 pictures of the guys wearing the Q shirts at a rally. One a black shirt, one a white shirt. And we were talking about in that conversation that these are where the comms are at. And there was something tied to a post you did. But we're showing that, hey, look, General Flynn's showing the comms. Now check this out. I want to bring this post up on the screen. Trump just did this 2 days ago, three days ago on the 15th. This is 4:22 p.m. Eastern time. Now, a couple things. If you remember this post, this is not the first time he's done it. This original post had Abraham Lincoln in the middle. And we talked about that. When it had Abraham Lincoln was when we were doing the General Flynn conversation, to where I'm going. This picture is going to refresh everybody's memory. What do you see here? What's the only difference? Abraham Lincoln's been removed. Now, again, we were talking about the similarities of the Revolution, the Civil War, and what Trump's in right now. But the other thing is all 3 of these presidents had assassination attempts on them. The only one being successful was the one with Abraham Lincoln, who's now removed from the image. So consider that. Now, when you look at the timestamp to this image, I shit you not, it's the same post that went into the conversation with General Flynn. Again, you have the white and the black. We just had the conversation with the white horse.
So that's interesting. So he posted this at 4:22, which goes back to that timestamp of white and black. We had a discussion last week of the white and black horse, that Trump's famous quote, for everybody out there, this is one of the reasons we got into that conversation, is Trump's famous quote is, "He who saves his country does not break the law." And that might mean that President Trump has to do things that are borderline to questionable, to where we start asking questions like, hey, what the hell's really going on here? That seems like internationally illegal. But what he's reminding you of is that, hey, he who saves his country does not break the law. And this was the post we were talking about with Trump on the black horse and Washington on the white horse. Is how do you bring light to Washington? You know, the sun rising behind them is Trump is riding the black horse, as in dark MAGA. Think Elon, right? Dark MAGA, you have to go dark. You have to go into the darkness to bring it out into the light. And this is what Trump's doing, is he has to do these crazy things that maybe you don't understand in order to do what needs to be done to save this country, to save this world. And this is kind of what actually it prefaces what we're going to talk about right here massively, because it is spot on. You know, I get asked a lot. I was in excuse me, I was in Menards hardware store, like Home Depot today. And the guy is like, "Oh, what do you do for a living? You're building a studio." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I do media broadcast." He's like a podcast? I'm like, "Yeah." And we started talking. He listened to the files and stuff. And he's like, "Oh, well," and then he asked me like a preparatory question, Alpha. He goes, "Well, let me ask you this. What do you think about the 2 new people being recruited into the WNBA?" And I'm like, "I could care less about sports." He goes, "But they're dudes." And I'm like, I got a problem with that. He goes, "Thank God." And he's like, he was just seeing if I was conservative, right?
Right.
And you know, once that conversation happened, I told him what I did and where I, redpills.tv and stuff like that. And he's like, "Awesome, I'm going to check this out." But, one of the questions I always get from people is, I don't understand Iran. I don't understand the Venezuela thing. I don't understand why, this Iran war is still going on. And look at all the Chinese paid affiliates out there. Like, "Oh my God, it's another, 2-decade-long war. It's Trump promised he wasn't going to do this." And what people,
he's a neocon.
Yeah, what people do not see is what is really going on. There's a few pieces of news that came out today. I'm not going to bring them up fully, but I'm just going to read them real quick. Number one is diesel crack. Diesel crack hits record $102. Okay. So unprecedented. First time ever diesel has hit that high. Secondly, global bond markets are imploding. The US, Japan, South Korea, France, and the UK are all seeing their bond yields reach multi-decade highs, including rising inflation expectations that could put central banks to raise interest rates again. You remember what Warsh was saying is like, "Hey, I can't lower interest rates yet." We have Scott Wright, as Energy Secretary, coming out and saying 0 barrels per day of oil leaving the Strait of Hormuz for Iran. Otherwise, the naval blockade is working. 8 to 9 million barrels are leaving, but under U.S. control. And that's really important there. $2.8 trillion city to launch Bitcoin custody for institutional clients. So Citibank is getting into the crypto world, and they are launching institutional custody for clients. That's not something we want in cryptocurrency, but large financial institutions are going to move that way. Then the 2 important parts here. Robinhood CEO Vlad Tenev says that we are at the beginning of a tokenization super cycle that will eat the entire financial system. Why is that important? The SEC right now is preparing to bring U.S. stocks on chain for 24/7 trading. This week, SEC Chair Paul Atkins is expected to meet with President Trump, CFTC Chairman Michael Selig, and New York Stock Exchange, CME Group, and DTCC, and leading crypto companies to basically map out the rules that are going to bring all of this together. So this is where it gets interesting, because If anybody's been listening to me for a long time, excuse me, what I've been telling you is that they're building a whole new economic system and model. This is phase 3 of the 4-phase plan of what Trump had in mind when he did all this. And so we're coming to the end of the accountability thing. And I think we're going to see accountability over the next 6 to 12 months, but that's closing the door on that. And it's now focused on the primary war at hand, and that's China and the United States, and who's going to lead the global economy of innovation of technology into the future. And the United States right now is kicking their ass. And you have to understand a lot of what Alpha says and Colonel Towner talk about with Gladio on Wednesday nights on his show, to understand how the British monarchical or the old guard system did this with, with Gladio and with NATO and utilizing intelligence structures. I'm not going to get into that part. That's not my specialty. My specialty is looking at the 40,000-foot view and really analyzing the global economic situation that is happening right now, because it cannot be ignored. So I can begin.
I'm fired up, man.
You're fired up. Well,
I'm fired up because everybody, you said at the beginning, and you're going to use it in the article you're writing, that choke point. If you listen to everything that Josh has talked about tonight, if you've watched the headlines, if you're paying attention to the Fauci, if you're Trump, for those of you that are not tracking, Trump just called our southern border, it's a military base. Like, for those of you that don't know, and in some parts he's creating a second wall. Like, all this is coming to a head. We're approaching that fatal funnel, and it is right around the corner.
It is.
Do you guys not think that with Morrison, Fauci's associate, according to the FBI director, finding out that, he just pled guilty, he's done, you don't think the deep state knows that this guy came to a deal? Look how fast that happened. Less than 18 months, this dude was investigated, indicted, and then pled. Here's why it's important. And I didn't cover this part on that, but it ties into what we're talking about here. You guys know we always talk RICO. And we always talk about all these arrests. We're going to see them come in a window closer together, because if you arrest someone and they decide to go to trial, you're creating an issue for the ongoing investigation because of discovery. So this means, in Cash's post, he says this is part of an ongoing investigation. That means they have so much evidence stacked against Fauci, against co-conspirator 1, co-conspirator 2, Morrison, and all these others, that they knew not only would this be a conviction if it went to trial, they knew it wasn't going to go to trial. So they knew they weren't going to jeopardize, discovery. They knew he would take a plea to save his own bacon. That should tell you the gravity of evidence that our DOJ and the military has right now. So all that stuff's coming, all of it is coming to a head. Dude, we're gonna see it before we get to November.
I agree.
We're gonna see something like huge before we get to November.
And I think that we're heading right now towards a national emergency and elections, which I think is going to be a last straw around October timeframe. But this is what, so Elon Musk said earlier. Remember I read that post by Elon Musk and we were talking about this?
We're talking about the new white Elon.
There is a potential future that is super amazing if we all fight hard to achieve it. What's he mean by fight hard to achieve it? This is what he's talking about, guys. He's talking about this amazing future. Remember I talked about the sovereign wealth fund, the strategic Bitcoin reserve, why crypto, why the United States is going to become the crypto mining capital of the world, artificial intelligence, artificial super intelligence, chipset making, data centers, all of this stuff. This is all pertinent to what is happening right now. Let me read a summarization brief from this multi-point article that I'm writing right now. We are not witnessing a collection of disconnected crises. Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, Venezuela, the Panama Canal, Greenland, Russia, China, Europe, tariffs, energy, Bitcoin, stablecoins, tokenized assets, the collapsing bond market. These are not separate stories. They are different fronts in the same war, a war being fought beneath the surface of the world most people believe they still live in. For nearly 80 years, the global economy operated through an interconnected system of central banks, commercial banks, sovereign debt, multinational institutions, and maritime trade routes. China manufactured the products. Russia and the Middle East supplied much of the energy. Europe supplied the regulatory and financial legitimacy. London ensured the movement of global commerce. New York financed it. The United States Navy protected the shipping lanes. America defended the system while its competitors learned how to exploit it. China accumulated manufacturing capacity. It purchased ports, invested in infrastructure, secured mineral supplies, and developed the Belt and Roads Initiative. Russia weaponized energy. Iran learned that it did not need to defeat the United States militarily if it could threaten the Strait of Hormuz and impose an inflationary tax on the entire world. And that was done with its help and control of British intelligence and the London banking dynasties that actually mitigated much of that. That is unrestricted warfare that has been evolving over the course of the last 100 years. It is a war conducted through currencies, commodities, debt, technology, trade, information, law, sanctions, supply chains, and infrastructure. The objective is not always to destroy the enemy's military. The objective is to manipulate the environment until the enemy makes the decision you wanted it to make. That's game theory. And that is what makes this war in Iran so important. The Strait of Hormuz is not simply a narrow stretch of water. It is one of the valves controlling the global economy. A significant portion of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas normally moves through it. Restrict that passage and diesel prices explode. Shipping insurances rise. Fertilizer becomes more expensive. Transportation cost increases. Inflation returns. Bond yields climb. Governments face higher borrowing costs. Iran may be the battlefield, but the network is the war. China is especially vulnerable because its industrial machine depends upon the resources traveling through maritime choke points. Oil moves out of the Persian Gulf, through Hormuz, across the Indian Ocean, and towards the Strait of Malacca. China then converts that imported energy into manufactured goods and sends them back through many of the same contested shipping routes. This is China's fundamental vulnerability. It may own factories, ports, mines, and foreign infrastructure, but ownership means nothing if access can be denied. The Belt and Roads Initiative was never simply an economic development program. It was an attempt to construct alternative pipelines, railways, ports, and corridors to reduce China's exposure to American maritime power. Trump appears to understand this battlefield better than anybody out there. He is not merely confronting China with tariffs, he's contesting the physical architecture that makes Chinese power possible. Look at Venezuela. Venezuela possesses the largest proven oil reserves in the world. For years, China and Russia used financing, oil purchases, and political relationships to establish a strategic position in the Western Hemisphere. Now Venezuela oil is being redirected towards the United States, supplying American refineries while reducing the flow of discounted energy to China that now has to flow proxy through the United States. Look at Panama. The Panama Canal connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The question was never simply whether China technically owned the canal. The issue was influence over the ports, logistics systems, cargo information, and commercial infrastructure surrounding it. Trump applied the pressure. China-linked port concessions were disrupted. American interests moved to reassert themselves around the canal. Look at Greenland in the Arctic. Greenland sits at the intersection of missile defense, space surveillance, rare earth resources, Arctic shipping, and the emerging northern trade routes connecting North America, Europe, and Asia. Look at the Gulf of America, the Caribbean, and Venezuela. The pattern is becoming unmistakable. The Western Hemisphere is being reorganized into an American resource, energy, industrial, and military fortress. The Panama Canal secures the movement between oceans. Venezuela provides enormous energy potential. Greenland secures the northern approach. American and Canadian resources provide industrial continuity. This is the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. Remove China, Russia, and Iran from the strategic infrastructure of Western Hemisphere. Secure the resources, secure the waterways, secure the ports, secure the Arctic, then use the protected continental base to negotiate with the rest of the world from a position of overwhelming leverage. Europe is caught in the middle. Europe separated itself from Russian energy only to become more dependent upon maritime energy markets and American protection. The war in Iran raises its energy costs. Pressure from the Trump forces European governments to spend more on defense. Higher spending means greater borrowing. Greater borrowing means more bond issuance. Higher energy prices means more inflation. Europe must therefore finance its military expansion while confronting rising interest rates and weakening industrial competitiveness. China faces the same pressure from the opposite direction. It needs affordable energy, uninterrupted shipping, Western consumers, semiconductor technology, and continued access to dollar-based financial systems. Trump is pressuring all of those points simultaneously. But here's where this goes beyond unrestricted warfare. Destroying or destabilizing the old system is only half of this operation. What is being constructed in its place? The answer can only be found in Bitcoin, stablecoins, tokenized securities, and digital ownership. The sovereign bond system is under extraordinary pressure. Governments have accumulated historic debt. Inflation is undermining the real value of bonds. Foreign central banks are becoming less willing to finance American deficits. Long-term yields are climbing because investors want greater compensation for lending money to governments that continue to borrow and spend. The old system needs new buyers. Stablecoins may provide them. A regulated dollar stablecoin is generally backed by dollars, bank deposits, and short-term treasury securities. When people around the world purchase and use those stablecoins, the issuers purchase additional treasury bills to support them. The Trump administration actually has something else in mind, and I'll get into that here in a few seconds. That means the United States may no longer need to depend heavily upon foreign central banks to finance American debt. Instead, billions of individuals and businesses could indirectly finance it simply by using digital dollars. A worker in Argentina, a business in Nigeria, or an investor in Southeast Asia may never open an American bank account or directly purchase a treasury bond, but if they hold a dollar stablecoin backed by treasury securities, they have entered the American financial system. This may become the new euro dollar market, dollars circulating around the world outside traditional American banks while remaining anchored to American assets and American financial power. Then comes the big one, tokenization. Treasury securities can be tokenized. Real estate can be tokenized. Oil production, mineral rights, infrastructure revenue, private companies, intellectual properties, commodities, all can be divided into programmable digital units. This potentially allows ordinary people to participate directly in productive assets once reserved for governments, banks, institutions, and the wealthy. The economic system moves from bank-controlled accounts towards portable digital property. Imagine holding a fraction of a treasury bill, an energy project, a piece of infrastructure, a private company, or commodity reserve directly inside a digital wallet. Imagine those assets settling instantaneously, trading continuously, 24/7, and functioning as collateral throughout the global digital economy. That is what's coming. Tokenization does not automatically mean decentralization. If a handful of corporations control stablecoins, custody exchanges, digital identities, and permissions to transact, then we will not have escaped centralized finance, but we will have created a faster, more programmable version of it. And so this is where I jump in and I start talking about the other aspects of what's going on. Because as much as that summarization was really good to kind of see what's happening and expanding right now, is the idea is to move away from centralization into the point of decentralization. We all know that we have the big artificial intelligence war that's going on right now. He who controls artificial intelligence is going to control the future. Artificial superintelligence is the key of which they're all trying to obtain, which new estimates show next 3 years. Artificial intelligence has 3 foundational bases: data, computation, and energy. Donald Trump is attacking all 3 levels of those: data, computation, and energy. China right now has the data side unmatched to the United States, but Trump is controlling energy and he's controlling computation. Now, why is that important? Because as this new world starts to come out, we start looking at why did Donald Trump make this transition and shift towards cryptocurrency? Why did he say that the United States is going to become the blockchain mining capital of the world, the crypto mining capital of the world? The reason being is because blockchain technology shares the same foundational basis as artificial intelligence: data, computation, and energy, which means that it now becomes an ancillary for the national security of the United States of America in the cryptocurrency or the artificial intelligence backbone. Going into this, there's a company right now, Riot Blockchain, just signed a $2.8 billion 10-year deal with Anthropic to basically give them their database infrastructure that they built out for crypto mining. Why is that huge? Because it's showing you exactly what I've been saying for years, that cryptocurrency and crypto mining companies are going to become the ancillary backbone of national security for artificial intelligence companies. That's very critical to understand what is happening now. Stablecoins that we've talked about. You're going to have private stablecoin companies issuing debt to the United States of America. But how is that debt mitigated? Well, Intel gave 10% to the United States of America. Starlink and SpaceX are talking about giving a certain percentage. Facebook, Meta is giving Trump certain percentages. Well, Trump's not keeping that personally. How does the United States hold it? They hold it in a sovereign wealth fund. And a sovereign wealth fund then gets distributed out to the American people when it has dividends. And so when you start to build a sovereign wealth fund that holds what, $1.3 trillion worth of gold, few $100 billion worth of silver. It holds all the patent rights of the United States patent market. It holds all the various different technologies created by the United States government, by the national laboratories, all the science and innovation that is coming about. $20 trillion of investment capital that is going into private corporation, of which they're going to give various different dividend returns back to the sovereign wealth fund that'll flow into there. And then what do you get? You get the Bitcoin strategic reserve with other cryptocurrencies that are going to be utilized within the tokenized infrastructure that's being built out to tokenize our whole supply chain and economic system, including probably the voting system where you can't cheat or steal within elections. Now, the important part about this is that when the Treasury goes out there, it issues a bond to a stablecoin company. That stablecoin company is going to issue $1 trillion of money that is now debt to the United States government. But here's what happens, and this is what I know is going to happen. It's probably going to be announced here within the next 6 to 12 months, is that the Treasury is going to switch how it works and operates bonds. Instead of debt bonds, which we normally and typically have, like the chattel of the American people being exchanged on the bond market and the stock exchange, what you're going to have is bonds that are derived directly from the assets held in the sovereign wealth fund, not from the stocks and the commodities exchange, but from the gold and the Bitcoin. In other words, you're going to have 25 and 50-year Bitcoin and gold bonds that are going to be issued to these stablecoin companies. Why is that interesting? Because these are appreciating assets. Means that they appreciate their value over time. One second. I'm almost done. They appreciate their value over time. So what you get is the United States government borrows $1 trillion. The bond is issued. The bond is, let's say, a 20-year bond that's going to pay, 3.2% annual APR. But what happens is that asset appreciates over 3 years and accumulates the total in that asset value to where they can trade it in early and be paid on that interest early. In other words, the American people didn't have to pay back that debt. The appreciating asset itself paid back that debt. That is the economic system that we're moving into. And the other benefit of that is that every year when that sovereign wealth fund has a surplus, the dividends are paid back to the American people. And this is why Trump's saying it'll fund government and it'll pay the American people to where the American people won't have to pay taxes. This is what the system we're moving into. But we got to win this war. And we got to get all of this is why Trump doesn't want the Iran war to end, because it's the war of economic attrition. He's killing off the European banking dynasties. He's killing off the terrorists and the deep state globalist networks within the Middle East, and he's starving China. It is a genius master plan. It is game theory at the highest critical level, guys. It is just unbelievable.
No. Beautiful. Here's the question. There's got to be a marker that shows it. Can all that be accomplished if fiat currency exists?
No.
So, in order for us to see the
it can, but I mean,
not to the efficiency or the way we're talking about here.
No, and the stable coins aren't fiat, and that's the one difference.
I agree.
I mean, if they're backed upon debt bonds, yeah, they're fiat, but the structured value of them is different.
I agree. So
there's another part of that too, but go ahead.
Hold on.
I'll probably answer with this question.
Hold on. Because I agree with you, and I don't see a stable coin as fiat currency either. But if we know the formula that makes sense is fiat currency no longer exists, the next question is, does Trump unilaterally destroy fiat through executive order, through however he does it, through the government? Or does Trump present this argument to the people? Does he show the people what you talked about? Does he show the people this is the direction our country is going? This is how I need to accomplish it. You guys have to vote this in, because if it's done through the people voting it in, we know you can't accomplish that with an election system that is compromised, which means that we would have to have an election system that's under full control of us, which means there's irrefutable evidence that anything bad is happening anymore. It means that we have absolute confidence they're free and transparent as always intended. So if you think Trump's going to do it, then I would say then it can have, this can go into motion at any time now. If you think Trump's going to do it through legislation, then that means he's got to do it under a government that's under his control, which means we're looking at post midterms.
So this is the Ayn Rand is proud of you. No, listen, this isn't the dystopian future that Ayn Rand worried about. This actually becomes more sovereign than anything because it becomes decentralized. Because there's a whole structure point that actually answers Alpha's question that I intentionally left out for this part, and I'm going to bring that in a second. But first, I want to address what you're saying. Is money is whatever the government says money is. Right? So it was House Joint Resolution 129 passed in 1933 under the Emergency Banking Act. He's writing it down. And that established both confiscation and the Federal Reserve note to be utilized as a legitimate currency. And that was done by Congress. Now, they can repeal that if they need to, but they don't really need to because, the government, the Treasury Department can come out there and say, hey, look, these stable coins, these are now digital dollars. Boop, boop, it's digital dollars, it's done. There doesn't necessarily need to be a transition away from fiat. All there needs to be is a restructuring in how that debt is borrowed and paid back. And that's what they're doing, is a restructuring how it's borrowed and how it's paid back. Now, I'm going to give some people some, let the rest begin was called me, Ayn Rand would be proud of me because I was talking about this, digital structure dystopian. It's not dystopian because here's the biggest part of it all. Alpha, did you get invited into XPay?
I did.
Okay, let me ask you this. Does XPay give you a percentage to keep your money in there?
It does.
What's that percentage?
I don't remember.
It's 4%.
It's more than a damn bank.
It's 4%. So if you held your money in savings accounts or money market accounts, you're anywhere between 0.1% interest, what you're getting to keep your money with the bank. Well, the bank borrows your money, utilizes your money in fractional reserve banking. Basically, every dollar you put in there, they can loan out $100 based upon your dollar deposit, and they're only giving you 0.1% interest on that. X Money is offering 4% interest. Okay, Coinbase. If I go and put my money on Coinbase in USDC, which is a stable coin, they're going to give me anywhere between 4 to 6%. Now, by the way, the Clarity Act, which is still going through the Senate right now, this has been the biggest part of the whole Clarity Act. Large financial institutions and banks are trying to fight against this. They're saying, hey, these crypto exchanges, they cannot hold dollar reserves and pay 4 to 6% on that dollar reserve. That will put us out of business. That's the discussion that's happening right now. So what they came to is basically let the large financial institutions get their infrastructure in place so they can play the same game as the large crypto exchanges, and then we move forward with that. Why is that important? Because this whole network that's being developed right now, and this is where Ayn Rand would actually be happy with me on this, is in context, decentralized with liquidity. What do I mean by that? So in order for money to move, money has to be present. You have to have money to move money. Water has to be there for water to flow, right? Right? From one place to another, there has to be a connection, a stream of water that actually occurs, and there has to be a pressure that provides for that current to actually flow. So here's the thing. Large financial institutions absolutely are going to control a lot of the liquidity pools. You're going to have decentralized networks, Aave, decentralized blockchains. They're going to provide the liquidity flow, the liquidity pools to move. Because what are we talking about here? So this is the one point that I think that everybody needs to see. Right now, you have, trillions of dollars that move every day on all the global markets. Trillions of dollars. That's trillions of transactions per day being done through the SWIFT and these various other systems. Once you start tokenizing all the commodity assets, once you start tokenizing all of your long-term asset holdings, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, you have fractionalization of this tokenization. What do I mean by fractionalization? Alpha, do you know what a Satoshi is for a Bitcoin? 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin, right? That's fractionalization. Imagine owning 1/100th of a stock. Now, what do? You just increased 100-fold the amount of transactions it takes to move one stock share. That's huge. Well, imagine when the whole world becomes tokenized, when 24/7 is occurring. That means that you're going to need liquidity on this planet that is far greater than central banks and governments and large financial institutions can provide. So who's going to fill that liquidity pool? That's why XPay is giving you 4%. That's why Coinbase is giving you 4 to 6% to keep your money over there, because they're utilizing your money for the liquidity of the inter-exchange. In other words, it's going to be you and me who get involved with all of this. We're going to get benefits and kickbacks in this system.
You know who else wants to get involved with this?
Who's that?
Rumble Wallet.
Rumble Wallet
wants to get involved with this. And here in just a moment, folks, you're going to see, if you're watching on Rumble, you're going to see a QR code populate over one of our faces. I don't know which one it'll necessarily be, but when it does, scan that QR code. Don't do it later. Do it right now. We hear a lot about crypto, but here's the part most people miss. Crypto was created so that you could actually own and control your money. After the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of a bank holding your money, delaying transfers, or limiting access, you're in control. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you have felt that problem. Now, fast forward to today. Everybody's heard of crypto, but getting started still feels a little bit complicated. That's exactly why myself, Josh, and a lot of us here at Badlands use the Rumble Wallet. It takes all the complexity and it makes it simple. Choose what you want. Bitcoin, dollar-backed stable coins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. No complicated setup. It connects with MoonPay so that you can use your credit card, debit card, or bank and be up and running in minutes. Once you're set up, you can support your favorite Rumble creators like me and Josh and others here at Badlands. So do this right now, not later. Scan that QR code. Click the link in the description and download the Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and you're in the game in just a few minutes. You can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some and maybe some Satoshis, because it's better when I say how many Satoshis I own versus how many Bitcoin I own. So, Josh, go ahead. We're queued up for that.
Oh, dude, that was an awesome setup for that. I didn't even know that was coming up. Someone actually asked a question, and I do want to address this question. They said, how do we make sure that tokenization of non-digital goods is actually not a fraud like fiat, meaning creating tokens then for the physical goods disappear like Fort Knox gold? And that is a great question. And so there's various different methodologies that you can utilize for this. Number one is there's a crypto company out there right now that's basically tokenizing the entire supply chain. And what they're utilizing is various different types of technology integration into the raw materials and supplies. And so what happens is that when that raw material is actually brought through, so if you have a box of, silicon that is brought through that comes from a field that it was just mined in, once that box enters a facility, it's actually going to be tagged and marketed and added into the non-fungible tokenized infrastructure of whatever product it's going to go into. So this means that, for instance, you buy a TV, you can go in there and you can start looking at all of the parts directly on the blockchain that's under the parent NFT of that TV. And you can see where all the parts and components directly came from. So that's pretty interesting. It doesn't answer your question. But what I'm trying to say is that technological integration and innovation is going to bring about a resolution for that. So if I have a deed to a house, how do I ensure that that deed is the digital copy is matching the legitimate copy that's sitting in, down at the county? The reason is because it's the same variation. You're going to have a parent tokenized version that you're going to hold directly within your wallet that you control and is yours. You'll have a secondary pair that's actually going to sit over in the county office. And those two are going to have public and private key identifiers that basically, once they are tried to be verified, are going to completely confirm their authenticity. And those things become immutable on the blockchain. So that's one example, but you'll have tons of different examples. Like right now on Rumble, you can buy, on the Rumble wallet, you can buy digital gold. And they tell you that that digital gold is redeemable for real gold that's held in a Swiss bank account. They're not lying. It really is. Now, do you have to trust them to do that? Yeah, you absolutely do. I mean, they're not going to send you, maybe they will send you $20 worth of gold. I don't know. Try it. But I guarantee there's fees associated with that type of things. But I'll tell you one thing that is way better than the majority of these asset companies that we see in the podcast world, to where you have to hold your gold or silver somewhere else in the country. And if you want it, you got to freaking either cash it out or drive down there and get it. So, you know, I'd much rather do it on the digitalized tokenized front, because that way I truly do own it. And typically with these tokenized assets, how they're going to operate, at least in the interbanking exchange, is that tokenized asset will be as good as gold. So imagine, and this is what I want to see people with the differences, is think about this in the context of stocks. Back in the 1930s and the 1940s, when you owned a stock, you had a physical stock certificate. Grandma and grandpa used to hide them under their pillows and under their mattresses, right? You had direct physical ownership of that company. You could take that stock certificate down to the local stockbroker and you can say, hey, cash me out of this, and they would give you cash for that stock certificate. That's how it worked in the old days. Well, guess what? When the new financial system kind of took off after the Bretton Woods agreements, and when the digital infrastructure in the 1960s started to get put into place, this all changed. Physical stock certificates started moving into kind of a custodial partnership. What is a custodial partnership? This is Fidelity. This is Charles Schwab, where they manage your accounts for you. They become the custodian of your ownership. In other words, they're the maintenance man that maintains, sell, buy all of the various different shares. And this was rectified and codified into law when 401k IRAs were basically put out there by the US government right before they got rid of all these pension plans and stuff like that in the early 1990s. Now, why is that important? Because when you have a 401k, when you have an IRA, when you have a brokerage or a money market account with Charles Schwab or Fidelity or any of these large financial institutions, I hate to break the news to you, you don't own shit. You don't own those stocks. You don't own those ETFs. You don't own those bonds. They own them, and they loan them to you. The maintenance fees that you pay on your ETFs, your mutual funds, are basically leasing lending fees that they are charging you. Here's the thing. They own the physical ownership of those stocks, bonds, mutual funds, everything. You are simply leasing them for them at a fee and cost. How do we know this? I used to be, I actually studied to go to Wall Street, do my Series 7 and become a broker. And I got trained up on this stuff 2008 to 2010. One of the things I did in the military was get ready for my Series 7 exam. And I really wanted to get in this, but I was really big in the Forex markets and Forex trading. And if anybody remembers when Brexit happened, I think it was 2015, 2014. And what was it? The Great Britain Pound or the Euro? Which one were you going to bet for or against? And a lot of people were utilizing Forex.com. And when we went in there, you would put a few $1,000s in there, and then all of a sudden it crashed because of Brexit. And what happened? People made millions, billions. But in the Forex market, the one thing that people don't realize is that when you make, like, if I say that the euro is going to crash, that means that the Forex.com management team is taking the opposite position. They say that the euro is going to go up. So they have to take that exact opposite position. Someone has to take that opposite position with you. And in this case, for Forex.com, they took the opposite position and they went bankrupt within a matter of 5 minutes. And there's a little piece of their terms of service that says that if the company ever becomes insolvent, all stocks, bonds, assets, all currencies are owned by this company and will be utilized to basically mitigate their insolvency. And that's exactly what happened. Nobody got paid out on anything. They kept all the assets. They kept all the money in your accounts, seized everybody's money. Even your money that was just sitting in your balance that wasn't being used, they seized it and shut down overnight. Well, guess what? Every single large financial institution, every single bank, every single crypto company, they all have the same damn policy. In other words, you don't own shit. But here's the thing. In a tokenized world, I can go to crypto.com right now. I can go to Coinbase right now. I can go to my Rumble wallet right now. And I can go to Coinbase. I can take my Solana. And I can take my Solana off of Coinbase, therefore completely reducing my liability of their insolvency, and I can move it to my Rumble wallet, and I can put it in my Rumble wallet, and that's it. And well, what happens if the Rumble wallet goes away? Great. I just take that wallet key that Rumble gave me when I created it, and I can go into any hybrid or cold storage wallet, and I can put that code in there, and guess what? There's my crypto. Because your wallet is not something that is physically owned by a company. It actually exists on the blockchain. In other words, when I have that physical custodianship, like on the Rumble wallet or any of these different wallets, I own it, I control it, and only people who can steal my password, which is almost incredibly impossible right now, are the ones that can get access to it. Only way that you lose it is if you're the dumbass who loses your password. And here's the thing. Well, you become a direct owner of that. So in the tokenized world, you're going to own these assets outright and legitimately.
Dude, I'm so protective of my password. I wrote it down on a piece of paper so I could never forget it, right? And then I was just like, what if someone breaks into my house? So then I burnt the paper. So now nobody can get it. And I'm just, sometime there'll be some future where we'll be able to figure it out. I'm just joking. I didn't do that. We got to wrap up shop here and get the Rumble rents, but I want to set you up. I know you did, but we'll save this we'll do a part 2 if we got to. But I want you to answer this briefly. And if we got to extend the answer, maybe we could do it on Overwatch and the Guardian, or maybe we can even do it on Q After Hours. You were talking about, what Trump's doing on keeping the war in Iran going. You're talking about, the tokenization and everything that's going on with crypto. And you said something that was very important when you were talking about this. You were talking about the components that are involved with this stuff. And I want to talk about that because as you're talking about this new reality of what our money, our currency is going to look like, that also shapes the way attacks are going to come. Now, one thing that we've seen is Trump has weaponized through Venezuela, through Iran. He's choked out China by slowing down and preventing or making them pay higher prices to get some of the resources that they need. Because again, I agree with you. We are definitely in an artificial intelligence war. So if we also understand that, and China knows, okay, the United States is choking us off when it comes to resources, well, the United States is still going to have access to LNG. It's still going to have access to oil. It's still going to have access to what it needs. Then it becomes a components war. You still have to have infrastructure to utilize that fuel that's coming in. And what I would tell people, and this is what I'd like you to expand on, Josh, to bring us home, in a guerrilla style warfare with the CCP, the PRC, whatever you want to call China, if we start to see attacks on things that are needed in order to utilize our fuel, maybe chips, maybe silicon, maybe aluminum, whatever that looks like, what do you think that represents as far as, do you get what I'm saying? I don't even know.
You want to know why you haven't seen it yet?
Because they need it?
Because they need it. Because Trump has put these choke points all throughout the world, which means that if they started to attack that critical infrastructure in the United States or in ports and control that Trump owns, they don't got it either because they're getting theirs from us. This is mutually assured economic destruction of what he's doing with these choke points and with these points of accessibility and the control and reallocation of global resources. That's why I said it's game theory at its finest.
Okay, then the last question, and then we'll get into the Rumble rants. Me and you have constantly said that we're in this artificial intelligence race because the first one to get to it, there's no second place. It's done.
Correct.
But, and I want to ask you this because I feel like this is your at least part of your expertise because you got so much of it out there. We keep looking at whoever gets to, whether you call it a sentient or AGI or whatever it is, general intelligence. We keep seeing whoever gets to there first is in control. But if it's what we think it is, whoever gets there first, are they really in control? Or are they just the ones rubbing the lamp where the genie's going to pop out? And once that genie pops out, who's really in control, bro?
So, one of the things that I think the Trump administration is doing incredibly correct and right is if you look at all the data centers and the nuclear power facilities that are coming up, did you notice they're not next to each other?
I did.
Did you notice that there's an equivalent distribution across the United States of these resources, but none of these resources are ever co-located usually near each other?
I did.
Now that is very, very strategic for a reason, and it's not because we're distributing critical infrastructure. It's because if artificial superintelligence ever becomes so large that it begins to take over us or the system, then we have decentralized points to basically take it out. And don't get me wrong, I guarantee you that this has already been thought of and already being done. That these various different power plants are being generated in data centers, I guarantee you there's a swath of explosive that are manually detonated that have no network capability underneath them for exactly these reasons.
I'm with you 100%.
Yep.
Sometimes
And a lot of it's called what we call air gapping, is that you air gap other parts of critical infrastructure that have the control mechanism. So one thing about artificial intelligence is people believe that it's going to be the center point of decision making. What I want people to start thinking about now is don't think of one centralized artificial intelligence that kind of rules and dominates the world. Start thinking about individualized agents, agentic agents that basically operate and formulate together, because that's really what this structure of ASI is going to be. But imagine that they operate in a sandboxing environment. And so a sandboxing environment basically means that this ASI is going to operate in a simulated construct of the modern world. Every damn thing that's happening in the modern world is going to be happening directly in this simulation simultaneously in the sandbox. And when ASI makes its decisions, the prompts are not going to get distributed to the decision makers. There's going to be a 100 microsecond delay that is going to go through various different agentic agents that are going to be tied into decision-making processes and real people decision makers, of which will then distribute those decisions if they go through the applicable steps, which I believe are going to be a static mechanism, more like a blockchain, a consensus blockchain protocol, where it has to go through, hey, does it violate human rights? Does it do this? Does it do this? It's going to have to go through those protocols, at least when we obtain artificial superintelligence. Is it going to be smart enough to get out of that sandbox environment? I don't think you can. If you have an air gap system to where you only have like one main feeder going into it, and it's just like a disconnecting little thing that all you have to do is jump over the line and pull the Ethernet cable and it's over, I think that will be rather safe. I'm not worried about ASI taking us over. The reason being is because I think the United States of America obtained artificial superintelligence a decade ago, and I think that we've had it for a long time. I think we've learned to utilize it, and that everything that we're seeing right now is kind of a transition away from that old world economic and power structure into this new world. And the reason why Trump and the military and all of these people are so confident is because we've already obtained artificial and superintelligence, which means that we've already won. We just have to build out the infrastructure across the United States and across the world to substantiate our power dominance over China, which Donald Trump is doing already right now. And the reason I say that I'm not afraid of it, because if we've already had it for 10 years and it brought us the Q movement and predictive analytics that helped the Q boards come about and allowed us to take over information dominance in the alternative media, then I love this thing right now, because it is absolutely amazing, because we are here today because of what that Q movement did for the world.
100%. And speaking of AI, here's a video of our last ad that is most definitely not AI.
Soft Disclosure deodorant is made with purity-tested ingredients like organic arrowroot powder, magnesium hydroxide, and nourishing plant oils. This deodorant keeps you fresh without covering up the truth. Activated charcoal works like a magnet to help draw out impurities, while green matcha tea brings antioxidant power to protect and calm skin. Aluminum-free, stain-free, and formulated to last up to 2 months of daily use.
Whole bus fresh, no steak on me. Soft Disclosure got me clean. Fresh so loud, can't compete. Mint, lemon, grapefruit, lavender tea.
It helps fight odor without blocking the body's natural sweat. And every purchase helps support 6 American small businesses. Buy 2 deodorants, get a free lip balm. Or visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code FRESH for 15% off.
What are you doing?
Soft
It's a catchy tune. It sticks. Let me bring on our Rumble rants and see what you guys have to say to us tonight or ask us, and then I'll get into the YouTube super chats afterwards. So starting from the bottom now, let me take this off this so it's a little easier to read. Give me 1 second, folks. There we go. Okay, that makes it a little bit easier. And we're back. Okay. $25 coming in from Flying Storm. You have arrived for this moment in a time for a reason, and that reason is to be a Badlander.
I love it.
Lauren Prida gifted 1 subscription. Thank you for that, Lauren, and thank you from the person on the receiving end of that. Dollar for dollar, Danish 27. There's a crypto summit at the White House tomorrow. Have a look at who's going to be there and let me know your thoughts. Did you know about that, Josh? I didn't know.
Say that again.
There is a crypto summit at the White House tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about with their meeting. And you know, I'll address a YouTube comment real quick. Josh talks a good game. I'll give him that, of course, but he provides zero proof to support anything that I'm literally going through the damn proof with these articles and the news and everything that's unfolding. But okay, bro, trust me.
Don't let them distract you. Take a breath. Well, earlier today, people said you have gills.
But they should go check out my Daily Dose show, because that's literally me going through all of it. Really, when I get on DEFCON, it's really like, hey, look, this is what I talked about on Daily Dose, but I can't go through all the information. But go to my Daily Dose. I talked about it earlier.
You'll get the hours and hours of it. $10 coming in from I Am Rosie 2, the best. You are the best, I Am Rosie 2.
Oh, you are the best.
$20 coming in from Colorado Guy 85. Can we put our hands together for the brothers carrying the crosses through the streets of Dearborn? God, family, and country. Hell yeah. Like that.
Absolutely.
$5 coming in again from Flying Storm. Jack and Hole salsa, 14 pounds tomatoes, 20 habaneros, 14 serranos, 14 jalapenos, 2 red onions, 3 whole garlics, 5 head cilantro, 4 tablespoons of chicken broth powder, medicine to clean you out.
I gotta screenshot that one.
Somebody, there you guys go. Somebody try that recipe and report back to the rest of us. Dollar for dollar from ZBM. Question: I caught the norovirus last Thanksgiving, and after getting super sick, I went to the doctor and had tests run. And one thing my test showed was that I am not absorbing oxygen, sodium, and dollar for dollar coming in for the second part. Other things, plus my white blood cell count is low now. Plus, there was something wrong with my bone marrow. Can mushroom supplement fix this type of issue? I'm desperate to know. Thank you, guys. ZBM, I will screenshot that after the show, and I will shoot it out to Kurt and Cristin and see what kind of ideas or things that they may have heard. So stand by on that one, ZBM. $5 coming in again from Flying Storm. It's deeper than that. Social distancing was for the distance needed to keep people away. Ballot adjudication, separation. See what you're thinking there. Dollar for dollar from Nuke Mag. Does treason or crimes against humanity trump a presidential pardon? I like I used Trump there. Pedal down, brothers. I listen. The pardon conversation is not done. And I think we will see something related to the pardon. Because here's the thing. Think about it in the form of strategy. If Trump came out and they delegitimize the pardons now, everybody knows what's coming next. That means that they're coming for them. Now, if the pardons are in place, it becomes a negotiation. It becomes leverage. You then get to use it against these people to be like, how much do you want to cooperate? You know, that's the old good cop, bad cop. So again, I think timing is what we're going to realize when it comes to the pardon. Then we get into $5 from our Broadway. Even though Fauci has the pardon, can he be charged by another country since he's responsible for deaths all around and all over the world? Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, we've mentioned that before. There's even the argument for state charges, right? We saw that, especially if you think about Tina Peters. Dollar for dollar from Danage 27. So are you saying Garling House could have been bought in as well, Josh?
I think they're talking about Brad Garlinghouse from XRP. You should go listen to my rant on the Sunday pertaining to XRP.
Gonna start a fight, folks. You guys are gonna start a fight. Dollar for dollar, Huck Fillery. I have some food for thought tonight. Bessent thing has me wondering. Think of the people close to the evil people in this world, but also close to Trump. Are those people close to Trump good or evil? Okay, that was it. This is what I told my audience, I think on Monday night's show. Because we know infiltration works both ways. Yes, I'm not saying just blindly ignore people's affiliations and who they were with the last couple of decades. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is people that are in Trump's orbit, either directly in his orbit or people that he constantly brings to the White House, judge them by their current actions. I think their current actions are going to be indicative if they're good guys or controlled by the good guys. So again, I'm not saying to ignore or discount the past. Just weigh what you see them actually doing now heavier, because now is the phase where it matters most. I don't know if you want to add to that or not, Josh.
Nope. Good call.
Okay, dollar for dollar from Nuke Mag again. For those that are asking for Josh to breathe, he has gills just below his shirt collar. I seen him. I told you. Josh's Water World. You guys just don't know. $50 coming in from Let the Arrests Begin. Noise. Josh, Ayn Rand is proud of you.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, that's what you were. I was wondering where you got that from. Now it makes sense. Dollar for dollar, ZBM. I'm in and out of the show, guys. Sorry, but is this future dream system a type of socialism? Because that will be no bueno for America. Just saying, I love you guys. Down the hatch, y'all. Cheers.
Love you.
And I don't think it's socialism at all, because you still got to have work product, which is translated into energy. So I don't think it'll be that. Dollar for dollar, Danish 27. X money is FDIC insured up to 100 million, and they custody it at Cross River Bank, who is partnered with Ripple.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a misnomer. Number one, Cross River Bank was one of the only banks out there that would actually take in and help with cryptocurrency companies. So they're financing massive amounts of products and projects out there. They're not just partnered with Ripple. They're partnered with basically every known cryptocurrency, even Ethereum. So saying they're partnered with Ripple is not saying like it's only Ripple. It's tons of other companies and other crypto projects. So
I'm with you, Danish. They're still partnered with Ripple. I'm with you, Danish. We're good. $5 from Thomas.
I believe that's Andreessen Horowitz, by the way, as well. Cross River Bank.
There you have it, folks. $5 coming in from Thomas Maga Num. So the deep state has stay behind units. What if Trump is putting that system in the way of them coming back next time? Yeah. I can see that. I can resonate with that there, Thomas. $2 from Rutherford 63. The reference to Washington and Trump could be the first and the last. What are your thoughts? I like that. I didn't consider that, but I like that.
I mean, it could be. Yeah. Of that old system.
Mm-hmm. We have Miss Rhea Freedom Fighter gifted 1 subscription. Thank you for that, Miss Rhea Freedom Fighter. Dollar for dollar, Lisa Urkel 61. My apologies if I got that wrong. Alpha and Josh, I tagged you both on X. A video regarding the Q post. Truly amazing guys shocked me on the way they travel, connecting each other. Please, watch.
Eckerly.
There you go. 61. And
Urkel.
Yeah, I saw Urkel. Fucker. Dollar for dollar, Neo Tribal. I heard someone arguing that the Iran war is not coming to an end, partially also because they are using it to blow up old, outdated missiles and ammo stocks to make room for better tech. If Trump's not going to end it until he's done using it, that's all it comes down to. Dollar for dollar from Lisa Urkel, a.k.a. Eckerly 61, and there is the link for that. And that will wrap up our Rumble rants, and we have a lot of super chats over there. You
don't want me to read those, do you?
Listen, go for it. I'll pop them up. Do it.
So for everybody out there, don't get triggered, but I do short version of the word jewels, and I say Jews. So 250 Jews laughing disco. Appreciate that. Modern Ronin 235.
Don't do the disclaimer. It takes out the.
I don't want JB to get mad at me. Janet McLennan, 2849, 10 Jews hiding. You're good. Helen S111, 600 Jews mic drop. That's right, Helen. I am Divine Creation, $20 super chat. What about the research that was done right here in the U.S.? There was the University in Pennsylvania, if I remember correctly, and that research went to China with returning China student. When do we get to that? And also Chapel Hill, North Carolina is where actually Equal Health Alliance was directly out of. That statute of limitations on much of that is already long since passed, so I don't think that that's necessarily being brought up within this, but I agree with you. Where is that in the context of the gain of function research?
Yeah. We're gonna find out. You got that.
Ronald Jarvis, 69, $5 super chat. Do you think Trump is doing this to usher in the third temple? He did have a replica of the Ark of the Covenant. No, I don't. I think that no, I don't. I think that that's an hour-long conversation right there. Maybe that's a good conversation for the OG show.
No is the simplest answer.
Yeah.
Just no. Hard no.
You want me to go on a whole Middle East thing again? I can go. I got a good 20 minutes.
I'm going on a hard no that Trump is ushering in the third temple. That is a hard no.
James West, K3I, 5 Jews treat.
And you're going to have another and another.
James West, K3I, 5 Jews treat. And 5 Jews treat by James West. So that's 15 Jews treat.
Which then leads to...
And then 10 Jews hiding. Thanks, James West, K3I.
And then,
what are they hiding from? They're hiding from the 5 Jews treat.
And the last 2 here for him. That was a new one there. Just so you know. 5 Jules treat. And then the last one. 5
Jews treat and 5 Jews 6-7.
Here you go.
10 Jews thumbs up.
That's from Test too.
That's from Test UF6GV. Josh, your brain was on fire tonight. I don't think most can keep up with you. From Brian Sexton, $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah, earlier when you were like, on my show, I was at 1.5 speed. That's like 10 speed for the rest of us, bro. Just so you know.
Shannon Patterson, 6126, $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Shannon. Appreciate you. Pen W 2539, 10 Jews hiding.
And then the last 2, folks, here we go.
Lone Wolf RF2QU, 67 Jews 6-7. Denise Blaine, 3737, 250 Jews MVP.
Sometimes I think you guys are more twisted than us with your guys' comedic references to the Jews.
It's funny because I've been waiting for somebody to comment on this. Like, you go and pick like 5 joules, right? 5 joules, and then you comment did 9/11 after, and then like I have to read 5 Jews did 9/11. Like, yeah.
You just gave a bunch of people some ideas that are just going to get weaponized on the next show. Brother, as we land this UFO, if UFOs land, I don't know, maybe we just hover. What do you got coming up this week? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so a little bit altered schedule this week for me on all my shows, just because my kids start school in a week, and they started sports this week. So son's got double sessions at football, so he doesn't get done till 9. Daughter's done at 5:30. I have to drop them off at 3, so my schedule's a little bit wonky because I'm trying to get the daily dose in earlier because of the nighttime shows Thursday night, so forth. So just bear with me on the daily dose for everybody out there. And if you are not subscribed over there, just search out Red Pill Project. Red Pill, one word, Project, another word, on Rumble. And you should find me. Me and Alpha tested that out the other day. And you can go ahead and subscribe over there and check out the Daily Dose show. That's usually where I do the in-depth deep dives, and I have all of the news and information that is legitimately validating what we're talking about that is on that. I used to actually provide a reference guide for all of that in our recaps that I did, but I don't do the recaps anymore simply because it just takes me 2 to 3 hours to do that, and I'm already doing the research. But for everybody out there, I have the Daily Dose, and then we have the OG show Thursday night, and I'm getting ready to go to Las Vegas, Nevada for the Great American Restoration Tour. Oh, look at that right there. Welcome, Badlands, the Great American Restoration Tour, coming to Las Vegas, Nevada, September 17th to 19th, 2026. Be there or be square. If you are in any of the surrounding states, California, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, New Mexico, Arizona, or anywhere in the country that you can get to Las Vegas at a $99 value through Southwest for limited time only, get down to Las Vegas, Nevada, and join us for the Great American Restoration Tour. This is where you're going to find people like Alpha Warrior, Josh Reid. You're going to have John Harold. You're Burning Bright. You're going to have CanCon. You're going to have Cam Kuski. You're going to have everybody there that matters at Badlands. So, so come on out and join us towards the Great American Restoration Tour. I hope to see you guys there. It's going to be a blast in Las Vegas.
Viva Las
Vegas.
Folks, you can find me alphawarrior.tv. If you're watching there on YouTube, definitely we and Joshua appreciate you guys if you go subscribe, check out the shows that we're doing on YouTube, do the same thing here on Rumble. And then one at the very end, dollar for dollar from Daynage 27. Garling House is at the summit tomorrow, is what I was getting at. Josh, you trying to get
because he donated $1 million to Trump's campaign. Of course he's going to be there. You know, so did Charles Haskin from Cardano.
Don't ruin it. Don't ruin the Rumble rant. Don't ruin the Rumble rant. I'm with you on that one.
Cardano. Oh, so how about this? I think XRP has a good next 5 years. I think it's a good investment for the next 5 years, but after a 5-year time period, I'd probably be reducing my holdings.
Just like we are, XRP too.
The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically antagonizing. Join the movement.
I'm going to say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.